All right, today we're diving into a dish that is the absolute definition of comfort food. We're talking about a hearty, rustic, one-pot Italian meal that gives you just incredible, soul-warming flavor, but without all the stress and the huge mess. So let's get right into it.
This quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It really captures the magic of one-pot cooking. It's all about how those individual ingredients start to meld together, creating these layers of flavor you just can't get when you cook everything on its own. It's efficient, for sure, but it's really about building a much more cohesive and, frankly, more delicious dish. Okay, first things first. We've got to talk about the undisputed stars of this whole operation, the meatballs. Getting these right is absolutely the first crucial step. Our goal here? We want meatballs that are just unbelievably tender, juicy, and packed with flavor.
Now you might be wondering, does the type of meat really matter that much? And the answer is, oh yeah, it really does. The recipe calls for a mix of veal and pork for a very specific reason. The veal brings this incredible delicate texture, while the pork adds that essential fat and a little bit of sweetness. This combo is the secret to that classic melt-in-your-mouth Italian meatball. Sure, you can use all beef, but the texture? It just won't be quite as tender.
Here's a little bit of food science for you. The real key to that tenderness we're after is something called a panade. It sounds fancy, but it's just a simple paste of breadcrumbs and liquid. What it does is physically get in between the meat proteins, and that stops them from seizing up and getting tough when they cook. It's a super simple technique, but trust me, it makes a world of difference.
And this right here, this is probably the most important rule of making meatballs. You have to be gentle. The more you mix and compact that meat, the tougher your final meatballs are going to be. So the trick is to mix with your hands just until everything is barely combined, and then stop. Seriously, less is definitely more here.
Okay, let's talk cooking. Before those meatballs take a swim in the sauce, they need a really good sear. Now notice in step 4, you take them out of the pot. That's key. This step isn't about cooking them through. Nope. It's all about creating a deep, flavorful crust. And whatever you do, don't overcrowd the pot, otherwise your meatballs will just steam instead of getting that beautiful brown sear.
And that beautiful browning process, it actually has a name, the Maillard reaction. This is the chemical magic that happens when you hit proteins and sugars with high heat. It's responsible for the amazing flavor of, well, everything from a seared steak to toasted bread. And in our dish, it creates this savory crust that's going to infuse the entire sauce with incredible depth.
So the meatballs are seared and smelling amazing. Now we use that exact same pot and all those delicious little brown bits left on the bottom to build the heart of our dish, that rich, deeply flavorful tomato sauce. Okay, now here is a fantastic pro tip that'll level up any tomato sauce you make. Before you add any other liquid, you cook the tomato paste right in the oil for about a minute. This is sometimes called blooming it, and what it does is caramelize the paste, cook off any of that raw, tinny flavor, and unlock a much, much deeper, richer tomato taste. It's a tiny step with a huge payoff.
All right, now for the part where it all comes together. This is where we create a beautiful, harmonious one-pot symphony of flavors. Everything goes back in the pot to simmer and get happy.
At this point, the potatoes go in right next to the meatballs. They're going to cook right in that flavorful sauce. And as they simmer, they'll just soak up all that meaty, tomatoey goodness. But what's even cooler is that the starch they release will naturally thicken the sauce, making it rich and velvety. And pay attention to that instruction for lazy bubbles. A gentle simmer is key so you don't break everything apart.
Okay, so we've got the meatballs, we've got the potatoes, the sauce is bubbling away, but what about the bell peppers? The timing for adding them is actually super critical to the final texture and look of the dish.
And this slide shows you exactly why timing is so important. If you throw those peppers in too early, they're just going to overcook, turn mushy, and lose that beautiful, vibrant color. But by tossing them in for just the last 2 or 3 minutes, they soften up just a little bit, but stay crisp tender, adding a wonderful sweetness and a fantastic pop of color at the end.
So you've mastered the core technique. Now let's talk about a few common pitfalls to avoid, and then some really easy ways you can customize this recipe and truly make it your own. This little checklist covers the big ones. We've already talked about not overcrowding the pot and the timing for the peppers, but you also want to make sure there's enough liquid in there so nothing burns on the bottom. And most importantly, always taste and adjust the seasoning at the end. A final pinch of salt can really make all the other flavors just pop.
I mean, this table just sums it all up beautifully, doesn't it? This isn't just a delicious recipe, it's a smart one. You get incredible layered flavor because everything cooks together. It's budget-friendly, cleanup is an absolute breeze, and my favorite part? The leftovers are somehow even more delicious the next day. It's a total win-win-win.
And hey, don't be afraid to experiment. This recipe is incredibly flexible. You could swap in some ground Italian sausage, maybe add carrots along with the potatoes, or finish the whole thing with fresh basil for a burst of brightness. Think of this as the perfect template to just adapt to your own tastes.
You know, in the end, this dish is so much more than just a recipe. It's about creating a feeling of warmth, of comfort, of pure satisfaction. It's proof that you don't need a bunch of complicated techniques or a sink full of dishes to make something that's truly special. So, I guess the only question left is, are you ready to make a meal that truly feels like a hug in a bowl?